December 8th at the Heartland Film Festival location. Thank you all for being here. This is great. We had a great time last night touring Arts for Lawrence and getting to learn a little bit more about Heartland Film. And Heather Ross, Director of Development, is here from Heartland to welcome us.
Hi, I just want to say welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming to see our beautiful new location here in Lawrence. We've been here for a year now. We moved in and did pretty significant renovations on this lovely historic space here in Lawrence. So Heartland Film just wrapped up at our 32nd annual Heartland International Film Festival. We have two film festivals a year, the Indie Shorts International Film Festival, which takes place every July, and the Heartland International Film Festival, which takes place every October. And I just want to welcome you all. We also have this new lovely event space, which gives us a lot more flexibility to do more events. We're doing a Merry Movie Nights program in partnership with the Fort Next Door and Arts for Lawrence. And yeah, we're so happy to host you here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a new commissioner joining us, Scott Wiley from Evansville.
Very kind of.
Yes, well, welcome. We're glad to have you. So glad. Thank you. Next up, we're gonna thank our poet laureate Matthew Graham. He's been our poet laureate from 2020 through 2023, and Stephanie is taking care of this.
Yeah. Matthew, will you join me kind of at the front so that making everyone turn backwards? Come on up. Matthew Graham has been our poet laureate for 4 years, which is kind of an unusual tenure for the poet laureate program. Although we did the voting and we extended his term as per the legislation. He is our first poet laureate from Southern Indiana, hailing from Evansville, and we love that representation. And he also was our first poet laureate to go through the COVID pandemic. So that was quite a unique experience for someone whose goal was to... It was especially unique for Matthew, whose goal was to travel to all 92 states and visit folks face to face. Kind of turned all those plans upside down. But he's also our most Zoomified poet laureate we've ever had, doing so many new things through Zoom that no poet laureate has ever done before. Lots of interviews, outside of Indiana, a lot of interviews for magazines and blog posts and things. So that reach was really interesting. And we really thank Matthew for his flexibility and his work through this last 4 years, and are very appreciative of the work he's done pushing poetry forward throughout our state, inspiring young people. I mean, one of the projects I did with him was we had 2 high school students come online Zoom with him. And this was in partnership with the Indiana Department of Education Literacy Department. And we had the students interview Matthew, and then we live streamed that out to the English teachers so they could use that as a resource. So cool things like that. And we're really appreciative of you, Matthew. If you want to say a few words, maybe talk about what one of your favorite projects from your tenure, and then you've got a poem you're going to read for us.
Sure.
Thank you,
Stephanie. Yeah, it's been a privilege and honor. It really has been. Yeah, a lot of Zooms. You're right. I almost covered all 92 counties, I think. But in the process of being poet laureate, in a lot of reading and research and travel, I started to realize what a rich artistic history this state has. And so I have a new book coming out. I was hoping to be out by today. It's not. But it's a series of poems I wrote as poet laureate about mainly Indiana, writers connected with Indiana, though I did a couple of artists and musicians as well. And mainly people, Vonnegut would be one of the most obvious ones, and I didn't do anything on him because it's too obvious. I wanted to focus on people that are incredibly important and added so much to our culture, but are either forgotten or maybe not as known as they should be. Barney Evans, for example, Marguerite Young, a whole slew of people. Ernie Pyle, who knows Ernie Pyle? And but I also threw in an actor. I had to, the most famous person in Indiana, James Dean. And just a quick story about that, and then I'll read the poem I wrote. A couple of weeks ago, I talked to some 8B high school classes in Paoli, our ski resort. And there's no snow there, the teacher wanted me to read this poem about James Dean, and none of the students knew who he was. But they knew the name because Taylor Swift mentions him in a song. I didn't know that. And then she put a couple of his photos up, and they all recognized the iconic cigarette in the collar, and they knew that photo. So that was kind of interesting. A year ago, a friend of mine who's from Indiana, Hillary Braysmith, I think Scott knows Hillary. She's an art historian and a writer. She's living in Berlin now, and she was running this writing workshop, and she wanted to know if I'd Zoom with her German class as poet laureate. And they were all writing in English, people in their 20s. And I read this poem, and they all knew who James Dean was. So it's like American culture spreads out, but it's lost here. It's just interesting. So if I could just read this quickly, it's short. It's called Fairmont, which is the little town where James Dean is from and where he's buried. It's about halfway between here and Fort Wayne on 60, just off 69. If you've never been there, you should go. It's really an interesting experience. So the poem's called Fairmont. James Dean's grave sits in a muddy and slightly shabby cemetery outside of Fairmont, and is littered still with dying roses and smudged lipstick kisses on this late February afternoon. In town, there's a small museum and gift shop where you can find the leather jacket with his turned up collar, his shrug to the world, his high school basketball uniform, the yearbook photos of his nearsighted smear, his girlish smile. The casket was closed at the service. Elizabeth Taylor sent flowers. It seems that to be immortal in America is to die young and beautiful in California, and then be brought back to the rich and anonymous soil only central Indiana can provide.
Oh.
Thank you. It's weird if you go to the museum and you see his yearbook photo, it's like there's all these geeky, Indiana kids with big ears, and there's James Dean, and he looked exactly in high school as he did, as a movie star. What's he doing in this yearbook? And one other quick story. One of the coolest things that happened, I gave a little talk in Osgood, Indiana, and at a library. And during the question and answer thing, afterwards, everybody said, "Have you been to Milan?" which is right next door. And I didn't know what they're talking about because I thought that town was called Milan.
Yeah.
It's Milan.
Right.
And they said, well, you have to go. And that's, of course, the town that won the basketball state championship in 1954. So they invited me and my wife the next morning to the high school. They brought the trophy out. They showed us around the gym. There's a little museum in town. It was the coolest experience. The water tower still says 1954 state champions. And they filmed the movie Hoosiers about that experience, which is all, they said the only thing true about the movie is the last 2 seconds. But the guy who shot the winning basket is still alive. And of the 3 cheerleaders they had, 1 is still alive. I thought that was one of the coolest experiences I had as a movie. So anyway, thank you all for the opportunity. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For being here.
Sure.
Thank you. Wonderful poem. My husband's a big James Dean fan, so
Who is it?
we've been to all those places. And Matthew, remind us what the name of the book is,
It's called the Indiana Series.
and it will be out soon. Yes.
Yes, I hope.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Next up, roll call.
Oh, great.
Thanks.
Ann. Azizi Arrington Slocum.
Present.
Chad Bolser.
Here.
Raina Bradley.
I am here, Region 3.
Ruth Ann Cowan.
Present, Region 12.
Dave Heist.
Here.
Kelsey Paper. Here. Renee Thomas. Here. Ann Penny Valentine.
Here.
Scott Wiley.
Here.
And then
Region 10, I think.
And then our virtual attendees, Walter Kanabi
Here.
and Greg Hall,
Here, Region 7.
Kayla Myers here. Jordan Adams,
Jordan Adams, Artist Services Program Manager.
Eric Ashby,
Eric Ashby, Grants and Research Manager.
Stephanie Haynes,
Stephanie Haynes, Arts Education and Accessibility Program Manager.
Maya Michelson,
Maya Michelson, Executive Director.
Kate Sharp,
Paige Sharp, Deputy Director of Programs.
Andre Zamora.
Andres Escanera, Deputy Director of Operations.
That's it.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Yes.
Okay. You've all been provided the agenda. And can I do them together, this motion together?
Yes.
And then the September 8th, 2023 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any changes, corrections, additions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Stephanie, if you'll call the roll.
Thank you. Azizi, Chad.
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Kelsey. Aye. Renee.
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. This is all information everyone was provided ahead of time. Does anyone have anything they want to pull from the consent agenda to review as part of business later in the meeting? Okay. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I need to read through these things? I do need to read through them, so if we'll hold on the motion. The items submitted for commission approval are the fiscal year 24 year-to-date financials, the code of conduct policy for artists, Summer Institute for Creative Teaching conference fee, lifelong arts for organizations grantee approval, and then reports for review, the Arts Trust report, communications report, Governor's Arts Awards, Poet Laureate, Hoosier Women Artists, staffing report, external partnership report, and RAP review. I will now entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those, no, we're going to take a roll call step.
Thank you. Azizi. Aye. Chad.
Aye.
Raina.
Aye.
Ruth Ann.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kelsey. Aye. Renee.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Walter.
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent. Now for the stuff we get to dig into.
Yeah.
First up, committee reports, Committee on the Future. Andre, you're gonna present us with some 2023 agency goals.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. I am elated to present to you the results of our agency goals for calendar year 2023. As a reminder, these goals reflect our commitment to growth, equity, and excellence, and were approved by this body at the March 2023 QBN. Our first goal was expand the reach and engagement of the agency's work. In 2023, we strategically expanded our reach and engagement by analyzing access barriers in arts organization support program and revisiting the arts project support program. We have made our services more inclusive. Our focus on understanding and overcoming language, geography, and information distribution challenges have led us to a measurable increase in our digital engagement with a notable rise in social media followers and email subscribers. This expansion aligns perfectly with our cultural equity statement, making a significant step in serving our broader constituency. Our goal 2 was measure and ensure the impact of our agency work. This year, we have taken a significant strides and leveraged data to showcase our impact. We have launched a public dashboard illustrating our work from 2017 to 2024, share our insights from our current grant cycles, and initiating creative agent research with the University of Indianapolis. Our new Flickr account enhances this transparency by offering a visual representation of these impacts. This initiative not only demonstrates our achievements, but also strengthen our role as the data clearinghouse, aligning with a broader strategic goal. Goal 3 was advancing external partners that supports arts and creativity. In advancing partnerships that supports art and creativity, we collaborated closer with our partners, our West, and other state agencies that align their programs with our service priorities. Our commitment to these partnerships ensure that the investment in Indiana's creative sectors are impactful and well aligned with our strategic goal. Moreover, the launch of a 4-part series accessibility webinar and an online AFQ for field accessibility marked a critical step in making arts more inclusive and accessible. And our last goal, embracing an agency-wide culture of reflection and learning for continuous improvement. This commitment has led us to undertake a comprehensive review and redesign of our core programs. We have revamped the APS program, standardized communication, and embraced an agency-wide system analysis. Our staff recently developed a new standard operating procedure. We'll be working with that and reflecting our learning and growth. We finished a staff retreat right across the street at Fort Van Harrison. We've spent time working with a consultant to figure out how we can be more in the process improvements process. And then this culture reflection is not only enhancing our internal process, but also ensuring that we remain dynamic and responsive to the evolving needs that we have in our staff here. So before I move to 2024, Madam Chair, any questions from you or any of the commissioner members on this?
A question, just great work, and really appreciate the staff, the whole team taking the guidance from the commission about a number of goals that we could remember, not a bunch, but a doable amount, and you guys have really done a great job of accomplishing that, and so bravo, good work to the team.
I'm old school, but that's.
Repository of images online, like photo albums. So you're able to see all the different albums and the different events and currencies that we have available, making that available for the public to consume.
Okay,
So again,
looking ahead,
we're coming over at the March QBM to showcase them and present to you the calendar year 2024 events.
great. That won't be a bunch of them.
That won't be
Yeah, we heard you, we heard you.
and those are going to be
it though.
definitely aligned with what's next on the agenda.
Awesome. Next up, Raina and Chad are going to present the strategic framework for approval. And he's been working hard on this.
Oh, there have been others working much harder. Then the two of us will be, Chad and I were both really happy to share the strategic framework. What is this, advisory committee, something to that?
Yes.
So I'm gonna provide you guys with a quick overview of where we started, where we landed, and then Chad's gonna hop in a bit. When we talk about impacts, we're gonna tag team that a bit as well. We're not going to go super in depth into this because you have seen it several times. So hopefully we're pretty familiar with the framework at this point. But for quick reminders, we relaunched the strategic framework effort in 2022, had a bit of a pandemic delay. But I think we were initially, we as in a body, were initially planning to relaunch that in 2019, 2020. So brief pause there. We engaged dozens of industry experts from various sectors to provide feedback, input, help steer the direction of where we were going. A lot of very vigorous conversation. Thanks in part to Sarah Peterson's leadership. And then naturally our staff did a lot of work in the background in between each of those sessions in order to get here we are today. I had a note here that there was also friendly debate about some of these items, but I think they're well vetted. Saying that to say, I think they've been well discussed and well vetted. And of course, it's come before the commission a few times. Our goal this time, to remind everyone, was to produce a framework rather than a strategic plan. So rather than having that large, exhaustive novel of a document that a lot of us are accustomed to seeing that rarely anyone reads, the thought was to create a document that's clear, clean, complete, and I will emphasize concise, rather than cumbersome, so that it's something that's very accessible and approachable, both to us, as commissioners, to our staff, and then to the broader community, so that it can wrap our hair easily around what it is that we do. With that, I'll pause for a moment and let you guys take a look at the mission, vision, and summary values. I love our vision. It's very aspirational, as it's meant to be. It's something that perhaps can never quite be completed, but so arts everywhere, every day, for everyone. And then our mission, the what we do, and kind of the how is that we champion and invest in the arts and creativity to strengthen Indiana's movement. So I'll pause, give you a little quiet time. If there are questions, let us know. Very good, seeing none. When it comes to our priorities, I'm very happy to say that our priorities take into consideration the needs of both career artists and those who engage in the arts for joy, pleasure, work community-oriented purposes and focuses. That's something that we have a lot of discussion about. And I think these priorities are very inclusive in that way. And then we have our long-term strategic impacts, which are described in more detail on the next slide. So I'm not going to get in depth into those at this moment. But if you guys want to take a look at our current priorities and let us know if you have any thoughts or questions. We'll play some gentle Jeopardy. All right. And then for these, I believe Chad is going to go ahead and do the first two. I'll jump in at the next two, and then he will close us out.
I would like also just to point out the two things I really appreciate about this document, I think staffs and everybody that worked on it. It is a functional document and it responded to the conditions that were over this period of time, 2019 to now. It responds to that. And it's also flexible, which means, and I think by design, Maya wanted this right from the very beginning. It's flexible so that, all of us that are here are like, sweet, we need to be concise. There might be a group of folks in these seats later on, and who knows what happens over the course of the next 4 years, but that don't want that. But this provides it the groundwork that it can be all of those things. So I think that's awesome. So impact number one, in every Indiana county, people and communities have access to the arts. This is obviously an expansion, the idea of having experiences highlighted in every county for arts plus interventions. And that's a part of what we will be measuring over the next 4 years. The second one, new populations of Hoosiers, which was a interesting conversation. I think we detailed that about what that actually means. New populations of Hoosiers experience meaningful learning in and engagement with arts and creativity. And what will we be measuring? Program participation, utilization of support, new contracts, or contacts and outreach of partners development. Again, the idea of support, so an expansion of support. As you think about these impacts, any reactions to those, any concerns, any things that come up, what this makes you think of?
All right, I'll keep it moving then with impact number 3. I picked the two that are more career focused because those are near and dear to my heart. A lot of friends who are artists. I love that we're supporting career focused arts and learning. So impact number 3 is Indiana's artists build towards successful careers in our state, starting backwards with engagement with learning and development resources to make sure they understand the business, particularly of the arts, making progress toward their business growth ladder that we perhaps be externally established and or their own personal business goals, which I think is important. And then new external programs that support career development in the state. Impact 4 is that Indiana's arts providers have expanded opportunities to enhance the quality of life in their communities. That's obviously near and dear to my heart as well, if you know anything about me. I love that we're trying to increase awareness of other funding opportunities and programs. A lot of the times, folks who are just embedded within our community just aren't aware of things like Green Places. So things that are happening at a state level or at a national level. So increasing awareness of that so that they can take advantage of those programs more. And of course, providing direct funding as well. And let's see. No, that's it. So I'll pause there as well. Any questions about how we're supporting career artists or encouraging to seek additional funds? All right.
And then finally, the broad recognition of arts and creatives value for Indiana. This, by the way, is my favorite. So I don't know that we planned that based upon our favorites. This is definitely, yes, we did. In our hours of practice beforehand, we did plan this based upon our preferences. But participation and engagement in learning opportunities of Indiana's creative economy. New groups, local government, economic and creative developers, other grants may exhibit recognition of value. And this is so critical to the messaging for not just this group that is passionate about it and understand it, but for the external groups that don't know what the value actually is. So I think this is a huge thing. And I think this, if you just go from impact 1 to 5 and then go through this, it is a great narrative for this organization moving forward.
And thanks again to everyone who participated, who's present here today, or not, and to the staff. As always, your work is phenomenal.
So I'll just jump in and say, Andre talked a little bit about what we did in 2023. And we'll be bringing actual goals to you for 2024 in March, but we've already determined, we did this at our retreat. The 2 areas of the framework that we're gonna be paying the most attention to in 2024. There may be others, but these are the 2 that we'll be paying the most attention to. You're gonna hear a little bit about artist services here in a minute from Jordan and Eric, but artist services. From the external side, sorry, our artist services. You're gonna hear about the great work they've been doing here in a few minutes that is setting the table for that artist services work in calendar year 2024. And then also in our retreat, we're talking and thinking a lot about access. And so saw a little bit about that in 2023, there will be more of that in 2024. So as it relates to sort of external focus, you know, those are gonna be 2 core things we're gonna be looking at. As always with us, we can't help ourselves, we get engaged in other things, so there will be other probably pop up, but those are the 2 that we're most focused on. And then internal, the process analysis and implementation. Andre touched on this, to be able to do more work or work more intentionally or deeply. We are a more complicated agency in a lot of ways than we were a year ago. Sources of revenue, program complexity, and so forth. We've got new team members in, really important for us to spend some time on process analysis and implementation. So we have standard operating procedures in for all areas so that we can continue to grow and expand as a team and support each other in that work. So that's going to be a big internal piece of the work. And we'll see that spelled out in more specific goals in March, but just to give you a picture of sort of what we're thinking about first and foremost. And then I think that, yeah, last slide is all the folks who played a role in this work, and they're really phenomenal. We had 2 in-person meetings and then 2 virtual meetings, and they were phenomenal. Again, thanks to Raina and Chad to co-chair, Scott, who's not a commissioner at the moment, but participated. So our thanks to that, and Andre and Eric who provided key staff support. The whole staff participated in ways that we try to keep other staff focused on other work that they participated in. So anyway, great. Thank you. I know I've been teasing Raina and Chad about really just prepping for this actual presentation. I don't want that to imply that you did not do a lot of work to get us to this point. So I want to really appreciate that, and everyone else listed up there who came together to create this. I think it's you know, we've been briefed on this over a couple of meetings. It's a great framework for heading forward. So thank you for all the work on it. Any questions or additional comments from the commission? Okay.
This is an action.
This is an action item. I will entertain a motion to approve the strategic framework.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Stephanie, if you'll call the roll.
Thank you. Azizi. Aye. Chad.
Aye.
Raina.
Hi.
Ruth Ann.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kelsey. Aye. Renee.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Walter.
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, next up, we have a policy for consideration.
Yeah, so I'll take this and I will take it and then I will also admit that I am taking it on in that this is a policy I am bringing to the commission just on my own. Every once in a while I go,
With our support.
with your support, yes. So just a little backstory for folks who have not been part of the conversation to this point. Commissioner's current policy as it stands is that commissioners can serve at maximum 2 consecutive 4-year terms. For commissioners who vacate a position ahead of their term and a new commissioner is appointed, our current policy states that they can fill the remainder of that term and then an additional term. And so obviously we have had far more transition in commissioners over the last few years, thank you pandemic, than we have, and I have a feeling that's going to continue as people's lives are in flux and it's change and so forth. And what we recognize from our conversations with commissioners who have had the opportunity to spend at least 8 years with us, that 8 years is of high value to them, which is most important, but then it's also high value to us in that we have the opportunity for their perspective, their guidance, their leadership in their communities that they bring to us. And we feel like it's important to make a policy recommended policy change that would allow commissioners to serve more than a truncated 1 term and a 2nd term for those that are this. So Andre, if you go to the next slide, we'll get to what I'm actually proposing. So what I'm proposing, it has gone through Committee of the Future as well as SEC, and that is making a change that commissioners could serve. They could complete filling in, they can complete that term, and they have the opportunity, should they wish, and should the governor appoint them. I want to be clear about that because these are not our choices, right? We recommend to the governor's office, and I would say this administration has been very supportive of our recommendations related to appointments and reappointments. But I should always caveat that is we all serve at the pleasure of the governor's office, or at least commissioners. And I serve at the pleasure of the commissioners. So governor's involved, really. Yes, it's right. The governor's at the top of the pyramid. I'll be clear about that. But that I am proposing that the commissioner who is serving out a term be able to do that, but then also have the potential, should they wish, and should the governor reappoint them, an opportunity to serve 2 additional successive terms. And so that's my proposal. And you want to maybe summarize some of the discussion that's happened in various committee conversations?
So there had been some discussion about should we make it more than 2? Could it go on to 3? And the executive committee came back to recommending 2 additional successive terms, simply because in the world of being governor, you are governor a maximum of 8 years. And to be respectful of those changes that occur every 4 to 8 years, that then, by doing it at 2, it allows just to keep in mind that sort of turnover. Generally, there's not a lot of get out of the seat because I'm a new governor, but you want to always be respectful of their authority to appoint and not disappoint anyone who thinks they get appointed to that 3rd term and then the governor doesn't make a choice. So that is sort of where we've landed.
And there was some conversation in Committee on the Future about whether or not terms could then change to 5 years or 6 years. And I would say that in our enabling legislation, it states specifically 4 years. And so to make a change like that would mean that we would need to go into our enabling legislation, which I do recommend for a lot of reasons. At some point under the radar. Yeah. There might be at some point that we feel other changes might be necessary, at which point we could investigate that, but I would not recommend that we.
And in my experience with other boards and commissions that are appointed by the governor, that 4 years is a term and the maximum will be for 2 terms. Yeah, that just keeps us a little bit better.
Question. Yes. Would the governor be made aware of this?
Yes, we have shared this with our liaison to the governor's office, and they don't have.
So even though you might, correct, and someone who's been
Yes,
on the board
Yes.
with the vacancy. If the governor has other.
Yes, and that has always been the case. I mean, there are terms obviously that cross over gubernatorial terms, right? And so we have not. We have not had that issue with the new governor coming in and making changes. But they have that ability to do that now for anyone who is serving when a new administration starts. We are, I think, positioned as an agency as such that we are, although our names, we're A, right? We tend to, in the pecking order of commissioner or commissions, that might be a priority for a governor to go in and make significant changes because of frankly who we are and what we do. We're probably not in that position.
There are a lot.
Yeah.
I would say there's over.
There are, yes, so, yeah, boards and commissions and state government. So I feel like we are probably fine in that area, but it's a great question to ask within. And I would also say again, that has always been a potential for commissioners that serve across terms. So I feel like we're on good footing in making this change, and our goal, I don't want to go too far down this road, but our goal is once we have a sense of what or who the next administration will be, is to start to build those bridges and have those conversations in such a way that it will maintain continuity of service.
I thought that would be the case,
Yeah.
but I just.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. It will be, I will say this, it could possibly be a significant change of this next time. Possible, always possible, always possible. So we are thinking about that. And I'm not using the word we, several of us are thinking about that. So yes, but it's a good question.
Any other comments or questions?
Just one comment from me. I'm glad, Maya, that you brought this, forward. I think it's a great change. So.
Okay, this is an action item for us to approve. I will entertain a motion to approve the new commissioner term policy.
so moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Stephanie, if you'll call the roll.
Thank you, that's easy. Chad.
Aye.
Rena.
Aye.
Ruth Ann.
I,
Dave.
Aye.
Kelsey. Aye. Renee.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Walter.
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So for those of you for whom this will impact, because there are quite a few of you, we will be in conversation. We will reach out to you to say, would you be interested in serving an additional term when the time comes? So just know that we will find you. You don't have to worry about us. I mean, Stephanie tracks it within an nth degree, so. So she is the reminder of that, and we will be in touch, so.
Great. Okay, Andre and Eric are up next for funding dashboards.
Absolutely. I'm going to start over here with our FY24 dashboard, which was updated last month. We got all our grantees, and for the March QVM, Eric and I can provide a little bit more impact and detail of what's been spent for program and what money has been spent by county allocation. So that's a preview of what's going on, and it's accessible in our website.
Yeah, if you go to our funding tab on our website, to the far right is funding history, and this dashboard is there. Andre, that's a hyperlink if you want to.
Yeah,
We don't blow anything up. So you can look, as you can see, to the sort of mid-level. You can look at fiscal year. You can look at it by program. You can look at it by county, by region, et cetera, et cetera. So
House and Senate district preference of the legislature, so they
Yeah.
can see what impact has been done, but all this goes back to our 2017 fiscal year as well.
So I think we're the only state that has this.
They love hearing that at the conference yesterday.
Yeah, so.
Fantastic.
So it's a tool for you as commissioners. It's also a tool should you be in conversation with an elected official that is interested in seeing what is in their zip code or county or what might be funded via particular program. It's all there. We will continually be updating it through the year as new programs get funded as we get through other programs, but, just hats off to Paige, who's been fighting for this for years and years and years, and Andre and Eric, Andre first and then Eric for support for getting this up and the lights of it, because it has been a monumental lift.
It's really great. And it also supports one of the goals that you've had for the year, so bravo.
Yeah.
A lot of transparency on that.
We're pleased.
Good work.
Loved, I know Andre loved, updating on the legislative districts and other really fun projects for him.
Guess what? We don't have to do it until 10 years from now.
Yeah, so
every
we're done
year.
for 10, we were solid for 10 years, but that was a pretty fun project.
Every district.
Yeah, so.
Well, it's really helpful when you're gonna call on the weekend of the legislator
To be able to go to
and be
that,
like, well,
yeah,
I'm looking at your district. and
Yeah.
There's more funding going to your district than there was before.
yeah.
Share kudos to Andre too for doggedly working at getting this online, so it was accessible to everybody. That was no small feat, and the fact that it looks so great is because of him as well. Because he took his knowledge in Power BI, and if we used the other route, it would have been not as cool and good looking. And we're an arts commission, it should be cool and good looking, so thank you, Andre.
So if you dig in and maybe it's not as intuitive to you as it might be to someone else, Andre is available for training and support to help you understand it and manipulate it in such a way that's useful to you. So,
To add to that, any additional information. Like,
Yes, there's something-
we're always,
Yeah.
this is point one, it doesn't mean that it's a final version, we're always working and improving, and what I was trying to do yesterday at the National Assembly of State, our agencies, is to work with other agencies and see, hey, what's useful in your things that can be useful for us? So what establishing collaboration and also give kudos to Eric, this is a research grant group at the national level with peer state organizations that he's leading with Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Yeah, that he's leading for the first time with our partners at NASA to see how much we can utilize and leverage big data in our sector. So that's coming.
I should probably know this. We talked about this many times, but are you updating this every year? It's
Yes.
okay.
Yes, this was just.
Once a
the last
year
one.
when the new grants come out, yeah.
We'd like to do it once the checks are out. So this year, we've got all the payments out, so everything is reflected as of November 15th, all the payments have been out, but I do wanna make sure that, yes, it's updated as soon as payments out, because I do not want people to say, well, I didn't get paid, why is my numbers there? So I wanna make sure that it's up to date and reflected as soon as the money's out.
and we do have some programs that we know that don't run on that July 1 start date, so we'll be updating as. I don't wanna make it burdensome for Eric, for Andre and Eric to update, but I think we do wanna keep it somewhat current in every few months update.
This is available through the portal.
Yeah,
This is available on our website and through the portal, both of those.
It's right here.
There it is.
yeah,
So.
We got a new fan over here.
yeah.
So we're moving to the second one, Eric,
Yes, this is NASA with two A's at the end, not the space folks.
space one.
They also provide dashboards that will show you where the Arts Commission sits in relationship to all the other state arts agencies. And so I just pulled a few screenshots. This is linked as well, but we don't want to break our tech situation. But if you just go to NASA's website, you can find all of this information. You can see some more context for our legislative appropriation, where we sit in per capita, which is again, how your funding is related to the state population. And it shows that over time. And so these are, you can see where we sit within other fellow Midwest states, which are right in the middle, that red line. right in
Illinois is the
middle,
top?
Top left.
Yep,
And yeah, Illinois is up there, as is Minnesota and Ohio, with some pretty large budgets. And then you can see how the funding makeup in the bottom left. In the top right shows you just some high level numbers. The per capita rank 38, that's where we rank out of what are there, 52, 53, 56, 56.
Yeah.
38 out of 56, and that's the per capita rating, which is a really good, that's a more accurate thing to look at when you're looking at what does our funding look like, because different states have different populations, and so your legislative appropriation is going to look different depending on your population. So that's a good indicator for the level of investment from the legislature. And then you can see some of the investment over time in the bottom right. So It's great, a lot of information on there. I highly encourage you checking it out. They also have information on license plates, all the states with arts license plates. There are 16 others and they have pictures of all of them, so you can go on and pick out your favorite if you want. And so they have information on all sorts of stuff. So NASA's website is a great resource. Highly recommend checking it out.
Maybe if we don't have a link to NASA's data page on the portal.
I can
Commissioner portal,
definitely put it
let's
over
put it on there. We'll put it on there and make it easier for you to find, so you don't just always find yourself in space agency or something.
Yeah.
You're great.
That's fair to Helen.
Oh, yeah, amazing, yes.
Okay, Paige, are you ready?
Yeah,
You're up with fiscal year 25 APS program guidelines approval, both you and Eric.
okie dokie. So most of you, if not all of you, have seen this presentation, but we also want to walk through it. So it's available to the field to understand the changes that we're making to the project support program. It's a program that we've had for a very long time. And we are making some changes that, are due for sure. But I want to make sure that the field has an opportunity to really understand the reasons behind these, as well as provide an opportunity to have any additional questions to raise concerns as well. So we go to the Wayback Machine in September when we met, and the policy decisions that were made at that time with regard to this program. So these are going to be changes that are reflected in the guidelines in your packet, as well as the ones moving forward. So that we had decided that in FY25, keeping the process largely the same, and we'll talk a little bit more about the consultant report and the why, establish an automated funding tool like we did with our organization support that was super effective and very successful, moving away from regional funding and going to a more statewide model, which does move away from per capita. We have done a lot of testing, an incredible amount of testing. I can testify to that, and we've gotten to a really fantastic solution that we feel very, very good about. I'm funding arts project support grantees at their full request amount, and they will receive the full award payment with their first payment, their first and only payment. Increases efficiency, it makes things easier all around. So in addition, we decided to establish a unique priority just for Marion County. Marion County is very, very unique in the state. And so this makes good logical sense in directing projects to the least individuals with the least access to arts opportunities. But there was interest in more discussion around some other key areas. And so we wanted to explore those through a study group. I do want to preface that the changes that are recommended are in concert with what the consultant advised, and that is to not make any major changes in FY25 because we need to determine what our strategy is for the project support and provide changes that are slow and intentional to not negatively impact the field. So the areas that we discussed were the total request amount, the match requirement, and the public panel review. All the recommendations that we made, the study group was in agreement with after discussion, as well as the Programs Grants and Service Committee.
Issues as well, and so moving to funding at the full request amount really will help streamline all of this and provide more clarity for grantees and more dependability how they plan projects out. And secondly, the other thing about changing the award amount is there are a couple things that were brought up in the study group where if we were to keep it at $5,000, there'd be a significantly less number of people funded, which would disproportionately hurt smaller and more rural organizations who typically don't score as highly as more metropolitan-based organizations. And additionally, one other concern raised during the study group was not wanting to set the precedent of lowering award amounts simply to spread out the number of grantees. But one of the things we talked about in regards to that was trying to make sure we have as little change as possible, understanding this is sort of a gap year for APS before there are more significant long-term changes to the program. And so the $4,000 mark is one of those, is that award level that allows us to maintain some continuity in the program while also providing a little bit more of an easier process for grantees. And allows us to have the access levels that we're wanting to have. So that is where the award request amount landed. So again, that is from 5,000 to 4,000 funding at the full request amount. Any questions, comments, additional thoughts on this change? And I will say we tested a bunch of different award amounts when we were running simulations, and 4,000 definitely got us to the best place in terms of not a lot of significant change. The match requirements. Currently there is no match, and in the discussions with the study group, match was definitely something that is more burdensome to smaller, more rural organizations, especially if it needs to be a cash match. And additionally, when the match was in place, it was only a 50% cash match, which Stephanie can attest to. The confusion around 50% cash, 50% cash. It's very complicated. Again, trying to keep with the simplicity, clarity of the program, keeping no match requirement for FY25 seemed like a good way to make sure we're increasing access, maintaining access, and making sure this time around that we'll capture a little bit more of how the community is investing in the project and the application. Because we do have an in-kind section in the budget, but we're not capturing it in a lot of detail, and in-kind is a very confusing item for a lot of folks. So we're going to add some more explicit pieces to make sure we're understanding how the community is investing, so that that's still being captured in the program and we're able to communicate that out. Any questions, concerns, thoughts on the match?
I think it's good that you recognize the county, that it's difficult for small community organizations, because even if there's the in-kind grantees in the community, they're so hard for some many reasons. So it's that's what it means.
So let's tackle panels. So we wanted to change panels. We did know from the consultant report that the applicants or the grantees, they value the comments from the panels. They didn't say anything about live streaming and recording, and the process for live streaming and recording is a significant amount of resources to be able to accomplish that for the commission. We talked at length about it with the study group, and the marketing team was there to say, yes, indeed, it is several days, full days to be able to make this happen. So we wanted to change it so it made more sense to really focus on what's most valuable, and it's the comments and the opportunity for applicants to go onto the webinar and listen in and see what's going on. So we just focused it in on that, because that's what was of interest to the field. So we will do a registration so they can participate into the webinar, observe, gather comments. And if they're not able to, then there's certainly other people with the organization who can also participate in that webinar. The thing about the comments is that if they're not able to watch, which a lot of them don't watch these things, which is what we know from all of the information and robust data that we collect, comments are really valuable. So they have a lot of comments in the online system that they can leverage with the regional arts partners there. They will be at the table and they will listen in and they will take the notes as well. And they will consolidate that into a report that will be uploaded into the application. So that's easily accessible to them in perpetuity. So the next year when they come around and they want to apply, they have something to refer back to, which is highly valuable and much easier than to go find a live stream link somewhere in the IAC's channel on YouTube, which even I have trouble locating. So I feel like this is definitely the best direction for us. So the study group had asked, is this really too much work? And indeed, yes, they corroborated that it was, and that was really the extent of those concerns. So it went through. Any concerns or thoughts or comments about public panel changes?
I might just add one thing if I could. I think for our volunteers who serve as panelists that are sometimes worried when they make comments that they may say something
that is taken the wrong way, or they may want to give honest criticism that they're doing it to a friend or colleague. And to have that live on YouTube for the rest of existence is something that I think for our panelists, this will be showing them a bit more kindness in terms of doing that. So I thought all the changes was just such a great idea. Got the comments and the feedback, but didn't preserve so people could find out about stale jokes.
That is such a good point, Scott.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
is.
But it's really true, and that's a big deal, and it's the culture where we live in, we need to be respectful of the individuals who do participate in this process. Whether they're volunteered or they paid a very small stipend at the beginning to do this work, so. Anything else, any other comments? Okay, so before moving on to the action, I did want to give you insight into where we're going with this program. We do want to go through a phased approach. It's really important that we kind of stage it to both give us time to think it through in terms of cause and effect and coming up with new strategies and innovations, and also integration of the Region Arts Partner review outcomes, and potentially the community position may interface with this change process in some meaningful way. And we wanted to make sure that we empower that potential. We've already gotten the programs team together, kind of map forward in the next 5 years under the new framework. We've also established some pillars of what we would need in terms of the timeline to let people know about changes, like what would really require like a year notification as opposed to like 6 months. And then we are going to do a Region Arts Partner retreat in February where we can get some of their input on this as well. I'd love to be able to get some sort of a framework provided to the commissioners at the June meeting, particularly along the lines for fiscal year 2026 in terms of some directional recommendations at that time. So, and then we'll just continue to sort of iterate until we figure out the best sort of long-term goal and outcome for the project support within our agency. And I think, unless there's any questions about that.
Okay, we have another action item. Approval of the fiscal year 25 APS program guidelines. I will entertain a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Stephanie, if you'll call the roll.
Thank you. Azizi, Chad,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Ruthann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Kelsey, aye, Renee, Ann,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thanks.
Excellent. Maya.
So I want to say a couple of words about the guidelines, program guidelines. It has been our practice since time immemorial, probably, to put in the specific program guidelines around every program for the commission to approve.
After we've already approved.
Right, the budget and other things, right?
Yes.
What we're doing. For a lot of reasons, I mentioned earlier that we are a more complex agency. We have more things going on, programs. Sometimes it becomes difficult to sort of time out the approval of guidelines to a commission. And so what we're going to be bringing to you in March is a proposed way to move forward in this space so that commissioners have the opportunity to see the overall structure of a program, how we're going to be thinking about it, what the goals of it will be, who it will be available to, how we will evaluate it, what the budget is, and so forth, for your approval, without the actual written guidelines, which obviously very often iterate till the absolute last moment. And so we feel like, just for a lot of reasons, that's a better way to think about that going forward. So we will be coming to you in March with a structure of how, and for conversation, we won't make the change until obviously the commission approves that. But we want to engage in some dialogue with the commission about here's what we would propose. What do you need to see from us to feel confident about approving structure of programs outside of having to actually approve the written guidelines, word for word, that we do for it. Which again, boxes us in ways that isn't always helpful for us really. So, does everyone kind of understand what I'm, great. So, just that is a highlight of coming attractions. And we'll be talking about that in March and look forward to commissioners' feedback on it. It will be an iterative process. And I would imagine in my mind's eye that it would actually come to fruition in June when the commission approves the budget. And when you approve the budget, potentially you would then approve the sort of structure of each of the funding programs that would be outlined.
But we don't have to review like 10 pages.
Yes.
Written.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Word change.
And that as new programs come on board, because sometimes we have the same thing. Sometimes we have buckets of things where we say communities, because we don't yet know what the program will be. And so there will probably be other times of the year that we might come to you with, remember this bucket you approved? Here's what we want. So just know that, you know, we are change right now. We are change. We have been, and we will continue to be. And just know that that is something that we want to bring to you, is in the spirit of giving you the information you need to understand what we're doing, but then giving us the flexibility to make changes up until the moment that it needs to go out. So that's what I want to say about guidelines. Great. Shut up. No. Yeah. Any questions on that? Concerns, heartburn on it? Great.
Excellent. It is 10:03. We're going to take a brief break. Start back up at 10:15.
Yeah, restrooms are out the door this way. Women's on this side. I'm guessing guys on the side. I didn't look, but it's out in the lawn. Do you have something additional, Mr.? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're on a break. Back at 10:15.
In 4 ways.
Oh. That's good. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. All right. Welcome back. We return to our quarterly business meeting of the Arts Commission. Next up, Maya is going to give us a program update.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the Strengthen and Innovate program. And the Strengthen, and just as a reminder, what is this thing that we're talking about? This is a program that we put in place in this fiscal year, FY24, which is only available to those arts organizations that were not funded in our most recent arts organization support program cycle. Just as a recap, in our previous episode, you may remember that we made significant changes to our AOS program and made it more competitive. And that resulted in about 45 organizations that were not funded, many of which have been funded since the year adopted. So this program was designed to help keep relationships intact, potentially provide some coaching and support for those organizations around a project of their interest, around either strengthening or innovating. Requests were capped at either $5,000 if they had a budget of less than $220K, or $10,000 if they had an organizational budget of $220K or above. Applications closed November 15th. This is an internal staff review program, so we're not bringing, we left the door open that if we felt like applications were of suitable complexity, that we felt like we needed external review support, we would bring it in, but we've been able to manage that from an internal review perspective. Next slide, please. So what do we know so far? We're still in the application review process, but here's what we know so far. And I'm doing this for Greg, because Greg asked about this at Programs, Grants, and Services. So Greg, this is for you. And it is not only for you, but is really useful and helpful for us to understand. Yep. So I appreciate you asking the question, which made me go in and take a look at it with Eric's help. We had 35 total applications. So 35 out of the 45 applied. So that's 77%, give or take. Of those that did not apply, it was nearly equally split between small and large budget organizations, slightly tilted toward the smaller ones, but I want to say it was 64. 4 did not request full amount. So Greg, you'd asked me in Programs, Grants, Services. I said, well, sure, they all did. But I had looked at the data. Not all of them did request the full amount. Those were all larger budget organizations that did not request the full amount. Of the requests, roughly 42% proposed utilizing a consultant to skill build in the following areas: inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. That was by far the biggest request, largest request by a mile. Also requests around fund development and financial management, organizational management, strategic planning, staffing review, and so forth. They were all looking for consultants that were skilled in those areas. Several proposed new outreach efforts that were focused in IDEA. Some were, we need a consultant to just help us get started. Some of them were, we've got a plan, we've got an outreach idea with this specific. Several proposed gaining new skills. That was particularly for the performing arts. We need to learn how to do this. We need to bring folks in to help us do that. Several proposed just new programming. That was either going to strengthen their organization or be somewhat innovative. Several proposed support with marketing that would help them move them forward, and then several requested capital assets. We had some software, we had some equipment, and so forth. So that's kind of what we know right now. What the requests were focused on. I'm pleased to see the large number of folks requesting support with consultant or requesting consultant report. If we go to the next slide. So we're still in the review process of determining who will be funded and who will not be funded. But I will say we're leaning toward trying to support all the ones who applied. And so what we are doing is there are some that we've already deemed ready to rock and roll. Then there are some that still need some extra work. And so what we are doing as a staff is connecting with those folks, giving them an opportunity to revise their proposal in the hopes that we can get them to a place where we can go with it. Again, the whole idea of the program is to support these folks, who we know more than likely need some additional support. So, we did not want to be overly punitive in that with this program. So again, we're trying to help support these folks as they meet deficit areas and just, but then also identify areas that they. So we're going to be taking what we learned through this program, not just through the project application piece of it, but then also how projects play out. And we're going to be applying that to the Arts Organization Support Program review process. We're gleaning some understanding about where organizations are currently, that I think will be useful the next time we do Arts Organization Support. And then also the Arts Project Support process, because these are all project grants, and it has been extremely instructive to see how organizations who are not used to applying for project funding, or some may not be used to applying for project funding, what challenges they are having in doing so. So that's helpful for us, especially if we decide to have that Arts Project Support Program be more robust and focus on specific areas. And so, yes.
Is there any sharing of ideas on the organization support of ideas to them what can be considered?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rudan. And so I have reached out to all 10 of these ones that have not, that need some additional support, and having conversations about project modifications. And in those conversations, I'm connecting them with other folks who may be doing similar work that they might want to connect with, so that they can understand a bit more about how to do the thing that they're thinking about doing. But to your point, I think what we're going to learn as a result of this is where we need some real capacity building support in the field. I think where folks are asking for consultancy help is certainly giving us some indication. But then I think we also are internally discussing that even for arts organizations that we have been supporting for years and years and years, there is significant need for capacity. And that is something that I heard when I was together with other state arts agencies earlier this week, is that for a lot of our other state arts agency counterparts around the country, that with all the staff upheaval and all the change, that knowledge and experience that we had assumed was in place in these organizations isn't there. Or that they need support. And so we're going to be taking, again, what we learn here, and be thinking about capacity building and who we provide that to. So again, that is all just in the hopper to be considered. We'll provide a final update at the end of this program period, which will not be until April 2025. So you'll have to hang on, because this is a longer period project program than what we do. But just wanted to give you an update on this because it's new to us. We anticipate that when we again do arts organization support again in FY26, I would anticipate that we're going to need to offer this again, probably to folks. And yeah, I think it's been instructive for us internally to just kind of understand where some of these organizations are. Yes.
One is the very large need that has been identified in the external consultants.
Yeah.
Ideas.
Yeah.
Two-part question. One is, have we identified resources for them to take advantage of, and are we intentional with communities of color being represented in those opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that. So we have a group of consultants and folks that we work with who are skilled and experienced in inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, and we direct them to those folks as consultants. But then we also have resources via our regional partners, and then also on our own website around inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. But it is something clearly that we need to continue to build out on. But we have a pretty robust list of individuals who are skilled, experienced, and have the proper background to lead that inclusion, diversity, equity, and access work in a way that's beneficial to them. And again, what I do appreciate and what this program has allowed us to learn, or allowed our applicants to do, is to say we have a deficit, because as a grants maker, we don't always support deficit conversations in our application process. So we evaluate you on the great things that you're doing. And we don't always give a lot of space to say, where are you struggling, where do you go? And this has been an opportunity to do that and ask that question, and we've heard I'm happy, it's a happy, sad thing that they need more help in inclusion, diversity, and equity and access, but they're saying it. And so for us, that's a big step forward. So anyway, we're gonna be looking at this in April 2025 and reporting back to you what we've learned. But in the meantime, we're gonna be taking a harder look at some of these areas. Renee, did that help answer that? And I might want to sidebar with you about other folks that you may know who could be skilled facilitators in that space, because that is, I'm a little concerned that some of our folks may get tapped out because there are so many of us.
Yeah, we could definitely use more
Yeah.
referrals from people who've worked with folks that you know or would be excellent candidates to do this work because you have direct experience with them. So any of you at the table, if you have recommendations that you think you should be aware of, that would be fantastic, because a deeper bench is great, particularly with the variety of size capacity of these organizations. Some consultants certainly command a much higher budget than others, and we need to have a pretty broad bandwidth.
Any other questions about this program and kind of what we're doing? Great. Thank you. Wonderful. All right.
Artist Services Needs Assessment Presentation, Jordan and Eric.
Hello, everybody. This is our Artist Needs Assessment Progress Report. We've been intentional and call it a progress report because the last time we spoke with you all, we were literally leaving our quarterly business meeting to go start our facilitation training, and we just finished our last assessment convening on Tuesday in the area. So we are still literally processing thoughts in the transcription from our last three, but we're going to go over the things that have materialized so far. You can go back just one second. But before we jump into this, we want to let you know that we were intentional in designing the assessment to be informed by the artists that we were speaking with, their past, present, and future as artists in Indiana. And so our presentation today will reflect the past, present, and future of the assessment as well. And so before we jump in fully, I want to take you on a visualization journey with us. And this is what we did to set the tone each assessment committee that we did. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Nobody's coming out to get you, just close your eyes. And take a deep breath for me. Take one more, because I know you didn't do it the first time. And take a moment to visualize your past, present, and future in the arts. When did art become a part of your life? How did it affect you? Where were you when it entered your life? Who was around? Come to the present. And what does art mean to you now? Do you feel supported in the arts? Are you living the life you desire? Who is in your arts community? Think about the future and imagine your ideal life. Who is there? And what does that space feel like? Take a deep breath. One more, and open your eyes. So that's how we set the tone for each convening. Here you'll see Jamaica Smith of Tina's Legacy. And so each of our community organizers then took that prompt and led a community activity, and she does reupholstery of chairs through storytelling. And so each of the artists there made a patch to cover the chair and tell a story of what an arts community looks like in Gary. And so that'll be on display. The finished chair itself will be on display in February at the Marshall Gardner Art Center. Okay, that was a long intro, but stay with me. Okay, so our team for the Arts Needs Assessment, we have facilitation trainers from the Tamarack Foundation for the Arts, Aaron and Candy. The demographic design for each of the artist targets in each region was co-designed by myself and Elaine Rowland-Luttrell. The facilitators that we had contracted with are Books Carruthers, Eric Salazar, Kyle Darnell, and Maddie Miller. Books that has worked with us on our lifelong arts initiatives. And the last three artists are all either current or past Ormrant participants. And then research, we contracted with a young lady, Natalie Larson, to help Eric with research analysis, and then Eric and myself led this initiative as well. But the goal of this was just to provide an opportunity for artists to network with peers and voice their opinions on their trajectory of their career within their unique region and experience. So this is the flow chart to show you how this was designed as well. Again, the Indiana Arts Commission, we basically were trained on how to facilitate these convenings, and we co-created each listening session question with one another during our training. The majority of the regional arts partners acted as hosts, and they identified a location as well as a community organizer and managed the logistics. And then the community organizer that they contracted with were responsible for recruiting the artists in their community and leading that opening creative activity like I just explained. The artists that were present were all compensated for their work, not their work, but their opinions that they voiced in those sessions. And then research, Eric and Natalie transcribed all of our sessions, did in-depth qualitative data analysis, and then talked about the key things that we're going to pull out in just a bit. So along with that prompt that I just went over, we started with these assessment values. So these 6 values we read over, and they were well received from the artists that were present, everywhere from crying to just really being overall just taken aback by that these were what we were gonna set the conversation for. And so the we in these were us as facilitators. We asked if anybody wanted to add anything, if anybody had any questions to this. And so it just really set the tone for a productive conversation.
Can you talk more about joyous resistance?
Yes, because that's one of the artists itself really appreciated that. So embracing joyous resistance, because we didn't want this to become a venting and complaining session.
Yeah.
While it could have turned into that, we want them to be able to express the things that they actually do have, where they find joy in their creative practices, and just make sure that that joy was present while still saying and expressing their needs. And so I think it worked. Even though we did get to some, hard conversations, it was always productive, and we left with the information we needed. Anything you want to say on that one?
A couple artists asked that very question over these values. And I think a lot of artists left feeling the joy of being with their peers and feeling a certain level of sort of resistance and collective movement, just being in the same space with the other people that are there with that day, which was also really great to see. I think it was a manifestation of that value from the community.
These were also the key questions that we co-created with our facilitators and our trainers. And so we started each session with that first question and let the conversation flow. If the conversation naturally flowed to a lot of these questions, but if it did not, we did blatantly ask these. We had some subset questions too. If the conversation got stuck, we moved it naturally, but it was a great conversation. In the sessions that I facilitated, I did always make sure that I ended each session with that joy and letting them tell me how they feel valued as an artist. So it left the conversation in a good place, always, even though we may have took some turns in some hard places for sure. Anything you want to say on the questions?
They're very intentionally open-ended. We didn't ask, what do you need from the IAC? There is no IAC in any of these questions. That was very intentional. And sometimes one question would go on. You'd ask the first question and it would be 45 minutes later. So sometimes we asked 2, sometimes we made it through all of them. It sort of depended.
And I will say, because we did not give these questions ahead of time. They came into the room knowing nothing of what was going to happen with the discussion itself. And I had one gentleman say, wait, what? Like, what are you're asking us in a conversational, low barrier power dynamic sort of way to assess our needs. And I think it was received very well with the questions that we asked. Yep.
So we're going to dive into some of what we heard, but before we do that, I just wanted to ground us in what what you're actually gonna see, what this is and what this isn't from like a data analysis perspective. This is a starting point for deeper inquiry. We're gonna talk about what the next steps look like. This is a small sample of Indiana artists. This is not all Indiana artists. These groups were anywhere from 8 to 16 folks. And there's a lot of anecdotes in here, so it's not everyone's experience. We're not capturing the full story of Indiana creatives. These are findings, or it doesn't necessarily mean this is absolutely what's happening for all Indiana artists. So just take it all with a grain of salt. This is what we heard at this point in time in this specific. All right, so who participated? We had about 150 artists total, and there are 400 plus pages of transcribed feedback. Pretty incredible. We had ages from 16 up to 97, a young 97, I might add. Absolutely awesome individual. We had about 36% rural participants and 64% metropolitan, which mirrors the state, about 70-30 split at the state level. 31% of participants identified as BIPOC. We had 59% female, 38% male, and 3% non-binary or gender fluid. So we had a variety of participants, and a lot of the targets that Jordan mentioned at the beginning were designed based on the state numbers. We wanted to have a representative sample of what the state looked like. This is a breakdown of the different disciplines, and we picked these because this is what we had state data on. It was described in this way, and so that's how we decided to use these names. Many artists picked multiple disciplines, but I just broke it down into the top one they picked for ease. But as you can see, we had a ton of different disciplines present. Overwhelmingly music, photography, fine art, and design were the big ones for sure. But we had a lot of people that did multiple things. So there was a lot of different artists in these sessions. So here we go. 5 key themes and findings that I want to talk through today: networks and connection, marketing, tension between creativity and financial stability, local government and other local organizations playing an outsized role in local artists' careers, and the intersection of identity and career as an artist really framed a lot of feedback. So we're going to dive into each of these. And each of these, I've put a quote on the slide. These quotes are from the sessions, and I'm going to read them because it's really hard to read a quote while I talk over about the quote. It's not very helpful. So I'm going to read it. I know you all can read it, but it's just, I think it speaks to what some of the key themes were. So I think that in the arts, especially, we live within silos, and a group like an arts council could build bridges between those silos so that people can interact. I've been extremely active in the arts scene in Columbus for at least 5 years. I've seen you maybe once or twice. This is talking to somebody else in the room. I've never seen you before. I think that it's important to have those types of opportunities and networking opportunities that are exclusive for artists. And this is something we heard over and over again. I can't tell you how many people lived in the same community for 30 years together and didn't realize that someone who lived down the road was a practicing artist and did this cool stuff. And it's just this sort of light bulb moment about other artists in the community that they had no idea about. So we got a lot of feedback about it. Would be great if we had more mentorship. It would be great if we could go somewhere and find other local artists in this area. And so that desire for feeling like you had connection and community with fellow artists was one of the things I think was highest on the list of feedback.
I think also a lot of the times people just started with, I feel isolated.
Yes.
Like I don't have anybody to go to. And for those who are more well-known artists in different communities, they also feel like, okay, people are coming to me, but who do I go to? Who is there to speak to on the needs that I have? And or if I'm telling people what to do, where am I getting my information from? So that was through and through our conversations.
There's one gentleman that brought up, where there's no common space in this community. There's no coffee shop I can go to where I feel like I'm going to run into 10 artists. I don't feel like there's a central convening spot where if I sit there long enough, I'm going to bump into whoever from different art spaces. And so this idea of like an artist co-op or a third space specifically for artists came up a lot in different ways related to this theme. Next one was marketing support. I don't really love staying on a screen all day, but if you cannot reach an audience, and if the audience is on social media, you have to figure out a solution to that, or you just end up creating in a vacuum. Social media was a hot topic of discussion, particularly for artists that skewed on the older end, who are missing their local paper and the support and opportunities that provided, and the time to do social media has become a really big burden, and also haven't seen a ton of ROI. And so there's a lot of talk about how can I get my work out there, what resources are available to help me build an audience, build a following, what local areas can I put this so that people see it. So that was mentioned a lot in these conversations.
I think also just the need for a platform just being promoted through and through to just organizations, people looking for whatever their specific art discipline is. People look for it and don't know who to go to, and they're like, hey, we're here, but they don't know how to promote themselves or who to leverage to promote their work.
One person even mentioned it'd be great if we had a local listing for gig economy workers. Like if you're a local business and you need a website redesign, can we have a local listing board that will source this creative economy work locally so that these opportunities are out there and it's not some hidden network of opportunities that so many artists in the community don't ever know about because they're outsourced to other folks or larger entities. So. Oh my goodness. Tension between creativity and financial stability. For me, it's like my bills are paid, my rent is paid, but there's not a lot left after that. So I got a second job to have a little bit of wiggle room. So that's been nice. But then it's also like that takes away time. And then it's all the other things of buying a house someday and stuff like that. So trying to figure out that balance and then how art factors into that. I think almost everyone we talked to had at least one part-time job, if not 2 or 3. And so this tension between how do I devote time to my creative practice and make a living was always a piece of the conversation, especially when we bring up what does having a career in the arts mean to you. They'd say this is what it realistically looks like for me to do this.
I think inversely for those who have full-time 9-to-5 that are outside of the arts or even in the arts, if they're working as a graphic designer of some sort. I had one lady say, I'm a graphic designer by trade, but that's not my art. Like it's too stifling, it's too structured. That's not what I consider my full-time creativity. What I do on my spare time in freelance work is where I really find my joy and passion. But then you have those who have worked for the local utility company. And I have that because I need benefits. I have that because where else am I going to find a steady paycheck, a steady benefit flow? So that's where they're at currently.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how this connected to people's life choices. So the 97-year-old, for example, talked about as a kid making clay figurines on the farm, worked in business for 40+ years, and now has a thriving individual art business. And she sells all sorts of stuff on Facebook. It's absolutely incredible. And it's built this whole sort of second life as an older adult in the arts, but didn't necessarily see that as an option when she was younger. So it was interesting to see how this concept manifested even for the folks who were full-time artists trying to manage the day-to-day business piece, and the burden that posed, which is great that OnRamp exists. OnRamp is definitely something that responds directly to this sort of concern. Local governments and organization support plays an outsized role on local artists' careers. They're not saying this is a great community because of its cost of living, because of its job, and because of creative individuals that live in the city. Most of us aren't known in our city until we're recognized outside of the city. I can't tell you how many conversations I never had until I ended up in Time magazine and then everybody called. We heard I heard a version of this in almost every session in terms of feeling recognized and valued locally, and just the impact that local governments giving you an opportunity to do public art or providing space for things to happen really jump-started a lot of people's careers in a really meaningful way. One artist mid-50s, I would say, talked about how there used to be a program with the city that he lived in where they'd subsidize storefront gallery space that storefronts were empty, and it was you got a month to sort of build your own gallery and sell the work, and that was a key piece, and he still lives in that city. And so there's a really big role that local governments and local organizations play in being able to jumpstart people's careers, but also make them want to stay in that place, feel like they have support and opportunities in Indiana to make that their home and continue working there. So I heard this a lot, and I heard a lot of desire to feel more recognition from their communities, especially at the government level.
I think importance in spreading the love too. I think in the same 5 people over and over again, recognizing the influence and the power dynamic that these organizations and government agencies have. So making sure that we don't pick the same 5 people over and over, that you spread the love, that everybody gets an opportunity to be called on, to be given that love to show their work.
Did you hear from the artists who wanted to be more involved? Like, I feel like that's you're often like that desire. To what effect? You know what I mean? Did anyone mention how they want to experience that? So I've also heard the same group of artists say, well, I don't want awards because that doesn't put money in my pocket. Well, that's often how people express recognition. You know what I mean? So there's this how.
Yeah, so I think recognition in the sense of process. So, okay, you give us this award, or there's a celebration and we've been asked to come and perform or put our work on display, but what about us coming in the room and being able to talk and network with these power figures or whoever it may be, recognize us in the process, in the full length depth of whatever it is you're creating, whatever revitalization, whatever the thing it is, make sure that we're recognized through and through, not at the end, not just as an accessory, but through and through. And I think that's
you mentioned during the recognition process.
Yes, so we talked about that we compensated all of them. And so when we asked at the end, how do you feel valued as an artist? A lot of them were saying, just being here. The fact that you asked me to come here, one, to be able to be in this process of whatever programming comes of this, but then also two, that you paid us for our time. That was because they said also, if you didn't pay us, I don't know who would be here.
Right.
So again, just being paid and compensated and being their thoughts and opinions just being valued. I think that's the recognition piece, not just flattery, pat on the back, but actually thinking of them as a human being.
One specific example somebody else mentioned was inviting artists to galas and they socially events where they don't have to pay for a table, but they can be in the room and network and get to meet people that are controlling a lot of resources and connections, building that social capital. And so getting access to those rooms, being included in those rooms is also another sort of form of support that I think falls under this pocket. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Intersection of identity and career as an artist framed feedback that we heard. One of the things I wrote down is dispelling the mythical and cultural practice of starving artists. Because I've been doing this pretty much all of my life, I was fortunate to have parents that empowered me to major in college in theater. I've been able to do theater in German to sustain myself, but it was because I came from a household that did not put limitations on me. I realized in college how fortunate I was when I saw all these gifted and artistic people who were pursuing degrees that they did not want, but they had to have a plan. My parents always taught me and made the connection of the transferable skills. So it was clear that theater was communication, that theater was a way of life, that theater was education, that speaking another language was going to give me a passport into other cultures. And this is something that I try to impart on my scholars. And I think this quote really captures, when we talk that first question about career, but also value, so much of people's responses were about their life story. This is how I got started, this was my childhood, this was my upbringing, this was my family. And that really was the frame for their feedback over the entire session. And I think that was a really big takeaway for both Jordan and I, is just how much that influenced how people view their art and career and what would be possible.
Same, I think that basically, while these things are broad, we have to realize that these were individuals and that they were coming with their own personal experiences. And so the arts are in part by the artists. So all of that comes, we just saw from Matthew Grimm, just their experiences frames the arts in so many ways. And so I just want to make sure that we realize that these were individuals and that their experiences and personal identities really fuel the conversation.
Okay, so just want to provide some quick reflections on the experience, some more quotes for you because that's the theme of this one. These are from facilitators, Maddie and Eric Salazar. Maddie said, I'm so grateful to have been a part of the Artist Needs Assessment. These intimate conversations highlighted the similar challenges that artists are facing across the state in both rural and urban communities, and the importance of gathering together to listen to one another and collaborate to create solutions. And Eric said, this has been incredibly fulfilling work, and I've also been able to expand my regional network by meeting more artists and administrators. It's been a great project to work on, looking forward to the impact that this assessment will have on our state. And the participant section, these are more quotes from artists, but I think this speaks to the value of the methodology we use, where we were compensating people for the time. Their invites came from fellow community members, fellow artists, and that some of that's manifested here. When so-and-so invited me, I was like, I value him a lot as an artist. I would love to be in this group. So it wasn't an invite from the IAC, it was an invite from my friend in the community. That was really important. I'm glad you said that about some community engagement. I think that's maybe just as big as receiving some kind of positive feedback. To receive an invitation to come here today, it was like, as an artist, thank you. Heard that a lot too, just people really appreciated the opportunity to be there. And then the last one sort of speaks to the networking piece we talked about earlier, just being able to sit down with people of like minds and opening up and talking about what they're looking for. Even though we're different mediums, we still relate to each other. And there was a lot of talk about continuing to sort of meet up beyond this initial one. So that was really exciting to see. So I have some personal reflections I'll add on this, and there's so much to say, so I just had 3 things because to keep it concise. For me, in thinking about this, one of the things that came up was just how many creative people there are in this state. They're all over the place in all corners of the state doing all sorts of different stuff. Everything from making Hot Wheels with scrap metal, to making Santa figurines, to folks working in construction companies that build big entertainment sets like mini golf courses and things like that. It's incredible. And certainly being new to the Arts Commission, it was just really exciting to see all the interesting things that are happening all over the state. So that was one. The second piece was, I think it's oftentimes easy to get lost in the numbers and the frameworks and things like that. So it was a great recentering experience for me to really hear about people's life story and the impact that this work has. Because there are certainly also comments about the impact of the Arts Commission on people's experiences in their communities. And so it was also really, it reminds you of the why we're all here doing this, why we care about this. So it was that sort of human piece was really great to just be reminded of over these past 3 months. And then the last thing I wanted to share is this really is a great reminder of the intrinsic value of the arts. We talk a lot about instrumental and economic benefits and impact, which are important. But if you look at the transcripts from these, it's about joy, it's about escape, it's about freedom, it's about these sort of fundamental human emotions that are it's valuable because I'm doing it and I'm experiencing it, and it's value right there, full stop. And I think it's easy to sort of pull away from that when we're trying to do case making and doing so many things, which are all good and important. But I think this experience really sort of centered the fact that for the individual and communities all over Indiana, there's joy in just doing the thing and consuming the thing, and there's a great value. And so that was great to hear and be reminded of. And so that was just, I'm really grateful for the experience, grateful that IAC leadership supported this style of program analysis and engagement. And I have to give a huge kudos to Jordan. This was in 3 months, 150 plus participants. You saw the flow chart earlier with all the moving pieces. I mean, a monumental lift, and she killed it. And so I just can't thank her enough for all her work.
We'll see too. I'll just echo sentiments and say that it really reshaped my perspective of Indiana. My mother was a social worker, a case manager, traveling the state, and so I got to see Indiana in that viewpoint. And I started my career with Indiana tourism, and I got to see the beautiful destinations and write about those and have people come in for economic flow of the state. But then to see and meet these beautiful and artistic creatives, and my earrings are today from an artist that I met. And I'm emotional, but I'm not gonna cry, but because these people are beautiful and they're the framework of what the arts are and the depth and breadth of what really keeps people here, and just their artistic journey and joy. And it just was a honor to be able to meet all of them and talk to them and have them be vulnerable with us as an agency. And I think the power dynamic that we kind of were intentional about flattening, as far as even the way we showed up in our dress, the dynamic of how the room was framed, it just allowed for them to be able to meet us as people, not the IAC. It just was good to be able to speak to them.
After the sessions, we had like a food networking sort of thing. Everyone from every session stayed for that. And there were some that were sort of Friday night. I think the one in Evansville, we were out until like 9:30 p.m. Like people stayed, which I think speaks volumes to sort of the tone of the conversation, people feeling like they were valued in the space. You can say something, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's always something on the tip of my brain. But I just, I think the way this was executed was just beautiful. The fact that artists were facilitators, the fact that people's friends were inviting them, that you considered the power dynamic, because a lot of the time it's just, I see so often, well, we entered the room and people didn't say that, and they said that, and it's like, because you have money and authority. And what else are they going to say to you? So I think just being aware and cognizant of that was awesome. The fact that you value the artist within the space and within the process, both in the invitation and in the valuing and dignifying of the time. Because I think it's easy to forget as well. A lot of us career folks get to go to meetings and sit around and say, well, I'm not being paid, but someone is paying for this time, and artists don't have that luxury. And something that I just wrote down very early on, I'm sorry, Eric asked me to talk. I blame Eric. Is I thought it was excellent that the IAC was not mentioned in any of those front end questions. So often, public focus groups conducted, especially by governmental entities, say, well, what can we do for you? And they don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, why would someone know what's in my entire tool bag in my municipal toolbox? They don't, you know, or what could be, or what we could accomplish, but to just assess needs and say, we're the ones as facilitators who are going to figure out how we can meet those needs. It just opens it up so much for conversation. I just thought that was brilliant, because usually they answer the questions, we don't know. You know, I'm an artist, I'm a designer, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know your wheelhouse, but you know your wheelhouse. And so giving them room to just speak to their need. Even the integration of, Eric saw something on my brain, I just let all of it right now. But I just think it was very well done. Very well done.
I think it was very well done. That's why I really congratulate you guys for
Yeah.
doing it. My curiosity is what are we going to do with
Yes.
all of
Oh.
So the next quarter, we're going to finalize these transcripts and finalize the analysis, because we still have those last 3 that we did in the last 2 weeks or so. But then we're going to design a survey. Eric, myself, Natalie, his research assistant, and Elaine, we're going to design that survey and deploy the survey as well, and analyze the results from that survey. A lot of what we'll most likely put in that survey is from those things that we've collected. And then the second quarter of the year, we'll go ahead and design the program and build the program, and then present to you at the March QBM, the final report of that. And then we'll take some time and go ahead and implement that in that third quarter as well. So,
Joe, you want to say a few words about who the survey is going to go to?
yeah, so we're going,
Yeah.
so we're gonna intentionally send that survey out to the artists that were present. Or we're also gonna use our larger networks and send it out to the artists that were not involved as well. And so we want to make sure that we put the final results from the survey on our website, we'll final report on our website, but we're gonna be intentional about designing it for consumption of artists too, because if they were involved in it and this is for them, we want them to be able to digest it as well. So we're gonna be intentional about that design. But yes, the 152 artists that showed up, as well as any other artists that wants to share their thoughts on that survey.
We will make sure that you get a link to it.
Yes.
We would appreciate your support in helping and distribute to artists you may know in your networks across the state. We'll be using leveraging our regional artist partners to help hopefully to share with other folks. But you as commissioners also know creatives in your communities, and so you would help. That would be welcomed. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, that's where, as I listen to your report, I mean, there's so many things that could be actionable. And getting those out to arts organizations or other organizations around the state, I think they would make some stuff happen. So, I just saw a lot of great ideas.
Yeah, I'm excited to get started. I don't think it may not come in just one full program. It may be in a couple different things that we implement, but we're excited to get started and see what that looks like.
And there will be regional reports, since we did all these by region, all the regional arts partners. Will speak, so tailored feedback, this is what we heard in your region, sort of things as well. Everyone can kind of.
And I would also say that we do have some money put aside in the FY25 budget for some artist services implementation, but I would also imagine that this could be a multi-year implementation for, we could decide we want to take a phased approach. So that's also a possibility as to how this gets actualized or outside of this. Wonderful, really good work. Next up, the 2024 Indiana Educator Fellowship for Creative Teaching Guidelines Approval.
Yes. How do I follow that?
Good luck.
No, I have two sets of guidelines to put before you. I have approved, but before the approval, I am going to share out a little bit of a progress report, if you will, what's going on with the Indiana Educator Fellowship for Creative Teaching. We had a word missing in our title there. This is from our website. The Indiana Educator Fellowship for Creative Teaching is a partnership between IAC and the Indiana Department of Education. The Fellowship for Creative Teaching supports non-arts educators with robust training, funding, a community of experts to inspire and implement creativity-centered innovation in the classroom. There's some buzzwords in there, but you know, can just put like hang out with teachers and do art and have fun on the website. But I'm going to share with you a little bit more about what the program is as a refresher and how it's been going. And again, to one step back, as you remember, some of you may remember, we had the PACE program as a research initiative about 8 years ago. And we've been iterating since PACE, since we know the impact for arts integration in the classroom is great impact for student success. We've been iterating, how can we make this more readily available all across the state? So in this current iteration, we have this fellowship. The application is open to any Indiana educators that are K through 12 licensed educators. We selected one community, and they receive $1,000 honorarium. We do online learning. This is what arts integration can look like. Here's how you can get more comfortable working alongside an artist. Here's how, creativity can be lots of different things. And then we partner them with the local arts organizations because they're all over the state. And in partnership with the arts organization, they have an artist visit their classroom 5 to 10 times and do work with the young people. Our goals that we wrote from the very beginning for this program is that educators feel a sense of rejuvenation and excitement. That's the top one. We're in a time where it is not an easy job to be an educator. And so top goal for this is bringing the arts in will help rejuvenate the educator themselves. We know there's going to be benefits for students, but specifically, let's get the teachers rejuvenated and excited to be in their classroom and do some new work. We also want them to understand arts integration. We know from our research, this is a powerful tool they can use. So this is a new strategy they can incorporate. We want them to understand how to partner with an artist. As we look to the artist side and growing artist careers, there is a teaching artist career where they support curriculum and school-based instruction as an artist, as a teaching artist. So we require all teachers to have a teaching artist partner during the residency program. We want them to feel more comfortable with creativity. That when I said, let's hang out, with educators and have fun, we get hands-on with the arts because that seems to be a barrier. It's like, I'm not an artist, I draw stick figures. How many people have either said that in this room or thought it or heard it from someone else? I hear that a lot in arts education. I just do stick figures. So we want them to feel more comfortable. These educators, I've talked about it in our Fort Wayne meeting. They were really excited to get hands-on with the work. So we want them to be comfortable with creativity and try new things as their students. So with those in mind, with those goals in mind, here's some of the anecdotes I've gotten back from this inaugural cohort of 20 teachers. On the right in the picture is Paul Satchwell. He's a teacher in Columbus. He said this guy, his artist, has been in my classroom once a week for the past 5 weeks, working with poetry as a tool to navigate life's ups and downs with high school age students. Today, we hosted an open mic for students to share their work. I don't know about y'all, but this experience has made the school year so much more rewarding and enjoyable. Sad to see it end. I think we're really hitting the mark on some of those goals of rejuvenation, excitement, and understanding partnering with an artist. This is from an email. I feel so honored. It's from a teacher. You guys have really shown me some love when I didn't even know I needed it in my career. I don't feel old at 49 years and having been here my entire career, really finding this grant rejuvenating. I couldn't have written it better. She wrote that and that was the goal word. I've actually been looking at more grants because I have new ideas I wanted. Exciting. This is an artist, or this is a teacher down in Greene County, and it is a AP English with the dual credit with Ivy Tech for English. And so these are very advanced students, kind of in the box students trying to get their college credits and they're in advanced English. And I'm having so much fun watching my artist with my kids. Last week, she led them in painting an exquisite landscape where you kind of go and add a little bit to, everyone adds a little bit to different artworks. Based on the premise of the exquisite corpse parlor game. As the students started their painting and then moved around the room to work on other canvases, they learned so much about conversing with an artist author, seeing how small decisions change the original meanings and vision. So powerful to watch. Some couldn't emotionally handle how their vision was not honored. Now they are more careful with using ideas of others. This teacher was so hyper-focused on how the arts could connect with critical thinking in writing, and how there's lots of different strategies as you move into college on how you analyze text and choose how to write your text. She loved the connection with art and helping students work through those different strategies in writing. Plus, we ended up with some beautiful paintings. So those are all the anecdotal evidence. We do have these surveys from our Summer Institute. Did you find this program informative? 100% of participants said yes. Did you find it fun? 100% yes. Did you find the program relevant? 96.88% yes. Would you attend again? Would you recommend this to a friend? Do you feel that you can define arts integration, which is one of my goals? Yes, 100% yes. So this is to say, this program has been really successful in this iteration. And it's not like I hit it out of the park on the first try. This is something we've been working on for many years, but this is it. And so plan for 2024 is to maintain the program's successes. No major changes except to expand the Summer Institute a little bit bigger. And the two guidelines I have in front of you have very minimal changes because of the successes we're seeing. We think we're right on track with that. So we've got one that is how the teacher fellows apply into the program and are selected. And the second guidelines are how the arts partner who get funded to send an artist to the classroom, how that funding is outlined. Any questions on the teacher program?
I'm always concerned about how the information gets to the teachers that you know to apply.
Yes.
And, that's a constant area that needs to be worked on. I mean, I personally called teachers, I don't think they ended up applying, but, like to the regional art partners, maybe do a letter to the school corporation that can be then transferred on to their teaching staff. I just think so many teachers are totally unaware.
Everything, I think that's a place
That's a good
we're
suggestion.
iterating in. I think that's one area that we've, because I think previously maybe we've not hit quite the right time with communications. So I think our comm staff is sort of thinking about that too. So I appreciate thinking about taking it to the local level, to those folks that might have the best direct networks with teachers and how we can leverage our partners.
Chad?
I would suggest only 2 school corporations that have a participant. And recognize that in that public school board sort of setting, they look for celebrations. It's a good opportunity. And it would communicate to the rest, to not just the teachers in that school corporation, but others that pay attention around it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things, like it's an easy win, and it would take 5 minutes. Good recognition for the teachers, but also good recognition.
Yes. When we first selected the fellows, I was strategic in sending their principal and superintendent. We asked them to tell us who their communications person was at the district level. We sent them a letter congratulating them that they had a teacher in their district. So we did that at the beginning so that the schools would be more welcoming to the artists that was about to come in and they knew what was going to happen. But I think there might be something to be said about at the end of the project as well, as we prepare for the next application opening.
And I don't know if it's reasonable or feasible to have somebody from the commission, not just staff, but commissioner waited to go and to help present and say those things. I think that's stuff that's it's easy, it's not a lot of time. Really, it's not that.
We used to do that when we concluded PACE projects. Yeah,
that
we did a big celebration for the schools and the PACE.
It's something I'll think about. Thank you. And thank you. Well, when Connie is back on Monday, we'll start talking. She already has a save the date. This is the next slide. The next round of fellowships will open on January 16th. So you'll hear from us around January 16th to start spreading the word about that. Connie already has a save the date that's been sent out once for the Summer Institute. So even if you're not one of the 20 fellows, the Summer Institute is a 2.5-day conference that teachers can come to and get a taste of it. So we'll have both of those things you can spread the word about in January and February. And yeah, I'll keep working with Connie on getting the word out.
Yes, this is an action item. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. One quick comment. I really appreciate you adding some of the testimonials from the different participants because I think they are your best source for really getting the word out. And I don't know if it's possible to simply just ask them for recommendations. Because I'm sure they're going and they're sharing the word and the information with the people that are in their networks. So if you say, hey, do you have people that might be in your network that might be of interest, and sending a personal kind of like notification to them, this opens January 16th, you were recommended by a participant, or if there is a landing page somewhere on the website that shares maybe some of the testimonials from some of the recent people, because I think that's what's really going to sell it. But I really think the word of mouth from the previous participants and them talking to other people is going to really, I think, make it even more of a hit.
We've had some of that strategy with OnRamp, and I think I'll ask Connie to adapt that because that's a great suggestion. The alumni send out
communications, yeah.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the 2024 Indiana Educator Fellowship for Creative Teaching Guidelines.
So.
Second.
A motion and a second. Stephanie, will you call the roll?
Happy to, thank you. Azizi. Aye. Chad.
Aye.
Raina. Aye. Ruthann.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kelsey. Aye. Renee.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Walter.
Aye.
And Greg.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Excellent. Now we have the announcement of the 2020, no?
Yeah, we do. Oh, yes, we do, absolutely, yes. The slide mover's like, oh. So, we heard from Matthew, Graham, who's our retiring poet laureate. His term goes until, Stephanie, remind me, December 31st. We have just on time, just the day that the legislation requires us to name a new poet laureate, December 1st. I'm happy to announce, although a formal public announcement has not yet been made, that Curtis Chrysler from Fort Wayne, who Raina knows, he's on faculty at Purdue University Fort Wayne, will be our new poet laureate. And we will find some time for Curtis to come be in fellowship with you, maybe at the March or this meeting, but at some point, so that you can meet him. We are super excited about him as our new poet laureate, and so more to come. Look for that public announcement. Probably won't happen until the first year. We want him to get his flowers robustly, and it's kind of a busy time of year for news releases, so I don't want to get caught in that rush. So probably super excited. More to come. Great. Yep. Thank you. Kayla, you ready?
I'm ready.
Yes. Maybe sit through a real long meeting.
So regional partners, we're continuing to meet bi-weekly on Zoom. And we do have really good attendance and participation in all of our meetings. Some of the recent topics that have been on our agenda have included the arts project support application format and the 2024 timeline for application intake and review, panelist training, and panel scheduling and format. Kate had mentioned briefly that we're also planning a regional arts partner retreat on February 23rd. We did have a small subcommittee come up with a handful of topics to make the most of our time. And then all the partners completed a brief survey to rate the topics and provide any other suggestions. And the content or areas that rose to the top were regional arts partnership expectations and requirements. So overview and in practice, the ISC's new strategic framework, the value of the regional arts partnership, the regional arts partnership evaluation update, essentially how this process will work, and then findings from the artist needs assessment. So we're still working out the logistics and how the leaders of the organizations will be involved because we're all a little bit different. Whether that might be a board president or a CEO, and in some cases, the regional partner is also the executive director. But we're looking forward to gathering late June, early February. And then I also just wanted to share appreciation from the partners for the artist needs assessment. You know, a lot of time and effort went into the process, and it was handled so smoothly. There was so much great feedback and discussion from the artists involved, and they said the artists really felt validated being included in the process. They valued the stipend and the sincere appreciation they felt from the ISC team and the partners involved. And I know Jordan was super responsive. I was emailing her all the time and she'd email me right back. So thank you guys.
Thank you. We have no consent agenda items that were moved to the full agenda. A couple of items under old and new business, just you've got some information on it, but Hoosier Women Artists, which is a partnership with Lieutenant Governor's Office and the Arts Commission, conveniently enough for us, will be this year, February 1st, 2024. I got a peek at the submissions this week and very excited for those pieces of work to be on display and celebrated on February 1st in the State House. Come on by if you're down and around. We'd love to have, the more the merrier. Wrapping it up, this is our last meeting with Commissioner Ruthann. So thank you so much for your service. I was thinking of the ways I would describe your service on this, you have been engaged and thoughtful. You are always attentive and challenging, ask fantastic questions, and so certainly do appreciate all of the time and effort and commitment you've given to the Arts Commission.
Seriously, I just actually do that. I've seen you guys, I've seen this commission make major changes, and it's all been good. It's all been good. And I guess one of my pet peeve things was get the money more equitable across the whole state. And I'm seeing that happen. So I'm leaving on happy. Much faster.
So, right then, we do have a little lovely party gift from us in recognition and thanks for your service.
Thank you. Is there any additional business to come before the group?
Okay, great. Also, our colleague Tia Franco, who led the commissioner earlier last month, so I recognize her for her time and service for us. She head out to work at Mirror Indy, the new independent newspaper that's working in the city of Indianapolis. So that position is open right now. It's going to be open until December 18th. You know, anybody who's interested in working in communications and working this job, Kanye.
Okay. Anything else?
On-ramp applications are open, still open, they closed in work. You can help us promote that out, that'd be awesome.
I just want to add one thing.
Yes.
I can't help myself. So we went to the NASA Leadership Institute this past week. We got it this week, I guess. Like what? In Santa Fe. I just have to share, like our agency shines so much. The work that we're doing is incredible. And when they would ask hard questions like, what kind of equity are you doing around rural? The 50 people in the room, nobody said a word. And I was like, well, we're doing things in 3 different ways. And it was like that all the time. So I want to thank you guys for all of your support as we explore and do things differently to provide better service and impact the state in my affirmative leadership and allowing us the opportunity to explore new territory. So I am so proud of the work that we're doing and just want you to be proud as well.
We are. Thank you. Anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Walter and Greg. We will see you in March in Bloomington.
Well,
Yes, I.